We see forces a
I'm
little bit.
jumping.
Splash close.
Ooh, I know what sectors.
Splash is dead.
No.
Oh.
Got two. I have it. We still just got three. Go.
There's
I got
another-
four.
Yes!
Don't give up. Don't want to hear any size as long as you have the tower. Shut the up.
No.
When it comes to improving your performance in just about anything in life, mentality and mindset are always going to be key components to any success, and video games are no exception to this. Hello, I'm Pika, and welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something I believe is critically overlooked by many players, both brand new and experienced, who aim to keep improving their performance in Splatoon, and that would be player mentality. I've been around in the competitive scene since the early days of Splatoon 1 back in 2015, and I've played in countless tournaments and worked my way up the ladder to the point of being a well-known and respected player near the top. Even though I don't have any trophies or major title wins to my name, it's fair to say I've experienced enough to know a thing or two on how to improve and function in a competitive environment. Over time, and especially recently, I've fully started to comprehend just how important maintaining a strong mentality is to player growth and performance, and I hope that by sharing this information I can help you realize these things too and save you a lot of time on your journeys and grinds. This video will be a bit different than my normal guides, as I'll be focusing primarily on thought processes and external factors rather than information about the game itself. If you aren't a player looking to actively improve your performance and get results, either individually or in a competitive team environment, this video might not have much for you, but of course feel free to stick around anyway. One last thing before we begin. I don't do this often, but if you enjoyed this content or any of my other guides, please consider subscribing, as I'll be continuing to make content like this as time allows, and I only plan on going stronger once Splatoon 3 drops. It's not much, but it's been a small goal of mine to pass 500 subs before Splatoon 3 comes out, so any support is appreciated. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. First off, I want to establish what strong mentality looks like and why it's so important. Many people should already be familiar with what the terms flow state or being in the zone mean. But if you aren't, flow state is essentially a state of mind where you are completely focused on what you're doing and are simply executing actions. In flow state, you don't have any hesitations or doubts about what you're doing and aren't concerned with any other things that might be going on. You just do whatever your task is to the best of your ability, nearly subconsciously. Flow state can happen while doing practically anything and is not exclusive to playing games at all, and I'm sure just about anyone can remember experiencing it at least once before. Now, flow state is basically the holy grail of mentality. Accessing it consciously is extremely difficult, and it only gets more difficult under high-pressure situations or when you have to keep shifting focus between different things, such as having to play the game and communicate with teammates simultaneously. This makes it an unreliable and unreasonable mental standard to hold yourself to, but there is a lot that can be learned from understanding it. At least in the way I see it, flow state is so powerful because it leaves zero room for fears and doubts to fester in your mind and lead you to slip up. The more anxious or frustrated you get while trying to do something, the easier it gets for your emotions to cause you to make mistakes, and the worse you'll end up doing. Therefore, the objective of anyone's mission to improve their performance via mentality shifts should be to do whatever it takes to minimize distractions and self-doubts, and to let confidence, subconscious instincts, and muscle memory radiate and show through whenever possible. To emphasize just how influential your mental state can be on your performance, let's look at two different situations. The first situation will be one with a strong mentality like we've been discussing, where the player is confident and focused. In this state, you're most likely to be performing your best mechanically and be most immersed in the game. Because of this, you'll likely also be winning more, or at least be having far closer and more exciting matches. These results are not only exactly what we're looking to achieve, they'll also make playing the game much more enjoyable, which will only encourage you to play like that more and continue to do well. Now let's look at the opposite, where the player is doubting themselves and is getting tilted. In this mental state, your fears and frustrations are likely to lead to you making a lot more mistakes and will both keep you from performing well and will internally confirm your self-doubts and make it more likely that you will continue to think that way about yourself in your play. Notice how in both cases, the player's mentality becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you're feeling confident, you're most likely to play well and stay hyped up, while when you're in a negative headspace, you're most likely to perform poorly and fall into a negative spiral of self-doubt. In this way, not only is maintaining a strong mentality important for accessing your fullest potential, but it's also a safety measure against falling into self-sabotage. With all this said, what are the best ways to establish a strong mentality and avoid slipping into a negative one? This section and the next one are going to be mostly separate ideas and concepts rather than cohesive discussions, as I'll be covering various mindsets and approaches that I've found work well for me. Everyone is different, so feel free to pick and choose anything that sounds most applicable to you, and adapt them as you feel is best. Here are the things I keep in mind while trying to build up or maintain confidence and positive mentality while playing. The first, most basic, yet most effective of all, fake it till you make it. It's silly, it's cheesy, but it works. The easiest way to fall into a negative mindset is to let intrusive thoughts take hold of you, and the easiest way to fight against them is to simply tell yourself that the opposite is true. When going into a match or into an engagement, tell yourself internally that you will win. It makes it all the more simple to go in and perform. Also, this method is completely dependent on yourself. Mentality becomes fragile when it's overly dependent on others and their perceptions of you. When you can comfortably and consistently become your own best cheerleader, you'll feel it and you'll truly see the difference. Next, and in a similar vein, is popping off for yourself. For context, a pop-off is a reaction that rides off the high of a good moment in a match. When you make a sick play or clutch out a game, let yourself embrace the hype and appreciate the moment. Even vocalize your excitement if you can. This is a great way of positively reinforcing yourself and your mentality. It is a wonderful way to get the ball rolling if you're having a tough time getting into a healthy mindset. I'm going to go on a side ramble about this idea because I think so many players have a terribly twisted perception of pop-offs. Many players are afraid of doing them because they don't want to come off as toxic or overly egotistical. A pop-off does not necessarily equate to disrespect. It is possible to respect your opponent while also feeling confident about yourself. In fact, I'd say keeping that in mind is crucial to have any chance at victory in sets where you're an extreme underdog. For example, if I'm about to go against FT Win, one of the two dominant teams within the Western scene at this time, I'm fully aware that I have a very poor chance at winning. However, it does me no favors to get in my head about it and force myself to accept a loss that hasn't even happened yet just because it should. Of course I respect the team, and am aware of their strengths when I play against them, but I still can and should hype myself up and convince myself I can win. If you make a good play, regardless of the caliber of the match, there's no harm in acknowledging how insane of a player you are immediately after doing something crazy, or thinking about how much better you are than your opponent after dunking on them during the match itself. As long as these are contained to their moments and are done with the intention of boosting your mental to perform better, it's nothing more than a pop-off. And other players should acknowledge the competitive reasoning and advantage of doing this. Things like this turn from good to bad when instead of just riding the high of a moment, you go out of your way outside of the game to personally trash talk opponents or senselessly gloat about your victories. That is being egotistical and toxic, and I do not encourage that in any way. Pop-offs are not the same as disrespect or trash talk and should not be viewed as such. Lastly, remember that the game isn't over till it's over. Another cheesy one, but again it's real, and especially in the context of Splatoon. This game moves extremely quickly and advantage states can be highly volatile. As long as there's still time on the clock, there's always some way to turn a situation around if you're looking for it. If your current strategy or approach isn't working, take a moment to stop, breathe, and reevaluate the match as it's playing out. A quick pause and mental reset can be all you need to recenter yourself and identify the play that you've been missing. Those are the ways that I try to keep a positive mentality while playing. Now how about the ways I avoid falling into a negative one? These are more diverse and take more time to get the hang of in my experience, since it can be hard to acknowledge and accept being tilted or frustrated in the moment. But if you can master these, your performance and mental endurance will surely improve and become more consistent. First, I briefly want to return the idea of pop-offs and complimenting yourself. Not only are these useful for kickstarting positive mental cycles, but they also keep you from being too hard on yourself and help you acknowledge how far you've come as a player. When striving to improve, it's always important to be critical of yourself so that you can identify your mistakes and make corrections as needed. However, if you get too immersed in this, you can become blind to your good moments and improvements and become demotivated. You can and should be conscious of both your strengths and where you can continue to grow simultaneously, and pop-offs are an easy and fun way to keep that balance in order. Next, and again in the same idea, is pairing criticisms with compliments. This goes for when evaluating your own play and when trying to give advice to others. If you only focus on where you need to improve, it can get overwhelming and discouraging. When evaluating any situation, ask yourself what you could have done better, but also acknowledge what you were doing right. For example, maybe you took a good position, but would have been more effective at a different time or state of the match. Or perhaps you used your special at the right time, but it wasn't in the best location. This approach leaves room for improvement and reflection, while also having the potential to be received much more positively. Another one is giving opponents credit for their good plays. Again, although it's important to be critical of your mistakes, realistically you cannot control everything that happens in a game. Sometimes you can be playing really well and have a strong strategy, but that won't stop the opponent from matching that performance with their own. Rather than getting discouraged and in your own head about the interaction during the match, it's much easier and healthier to shake it off in the moment by acknowledging your opponent's skill and saving the criticism for later. Next, and my favorite of all, is the mindset that no matter what happens, it's all data. No one was a pro when they first started at anything. It's impossible to do things right without first learning how to do them, and in the case of competition, that learning process involves a lot of losing. A loss is only truly a failure when you convince yourself it has no value. As long as you are willing to take as much information as you can from any given match, it will always be significant regardless of the result. Finally, remember not to overexert yourself. If you're finding that it's too difficult to get into a healthy mindset when playing, it's fine and wise to take some time away. whether that be just for a few hours or for a matter of days or weeks. Breaks are the perfect way to force a mental reset, and it makes it much easier to identify and correct any potentially bad habits, both physical and mental, that you may have upon return. Also, even if you're playing actively and are in the middle of a tournament or some other thing, it's fine to take a few minutes away from the game whenever you get a moment, such as in between sets. Standing up and physically taking a step away from your setup to calm down and take your mind off the game is the best way to mentally reset yourself on the fly. That's all the tips I've got on keeping your mentality in check. The last thing I want to talk about briefly is how some of these can be adapted within team contexts. If you're on a competitive team, remember that mentality is often infectious. When you're feeling confident and energetic, your teammates will benefit from it too. And the opposite is true for negative mentalities. Therefore, the team will feel the most comfortable and play at their best together when as many people have a positive mindset in the moment as possible. Even just doing your best to keep yourself in check is a great way to contribute to achieving that. If you want to go the extra mile, do what you can to sustain and lift up your teammates when you can too. For example, if you pop off for yourself appropriately, not only do you help yourself out, but you also lighten the mood and energize your teammates. Also, if you see your teammates playing well and doing things right, encourage them and pop off for them too. This achieves all the same things as popping off for yourself, but is especially effective at helping out an individual. I will say to keep all this within reason, of course, because you can't have too much of a good thing. You don't want to be spending so much time and energy popping off that you block out other important callouts or potentially overwhelm people. As always, the best option is to talk about it with your teammates and figure out what works best for everyone. Other examples of putting these into team context can include giving positive and balanced criticism and getting the team to collectively breathe and take mental resets together. Positive mentalities benefit the team collectively in all the same ways as it benefits you individually. When everyone's feeling confident, more people play well, more people have fun, and the better the team will perform and work together overall.
That's all I've got on this subject for today. I could go on and on about anything I mentioned in here though, so if you'd like a more in-depth explanation of anything brought up in here, I'd be more than happy to expand upon it further, or even make a more specific video on it. Again, I believe mentality is the single most important thing for growth and improvement, so I don't think enough can be said about it. These concepts aren't just important within Splatoon or any video game, but honestly could be applied to life in general. If you made it this far, I thank you for valuing my insight on this stuff. Speaking of actually, it's rather timely at the time of me writing this, but I'm now a coach for Splatoon 2 on Medify. If you want me to review your gameplay or help you personally improve at the game in any other way, check out the link to my page below and consider booking a session. Anyway, that's all from me, so thanks for watching, and have a good one.